One day in CCD class, the class was going over the 10 Commandments. And after the teacher got done explaining the fourth one, honor your mother and your father, she asked the kids, well, which one applies to your brothers and sisters, your siblings? And one kid thought about it for a minute, said, I know, do not kill. One of the things that I hear inside and outside the confessional, probably more than any other topic, is the difficulty of family life. Family life. It's easy to love those that we may see for a time. Easy to forgive those that we may not see again. But for those people that we're stuck with, it can be really, really hard sometimes to always be loving and to always follow all those commandments that God gave us. And so, sometimes you have to wonder, what is the answer? Because family is such a gift. And one of the ways I often respond, which is out of my own experience, is that as difficult as it is to always love those closest to us, they are the ones that Jesus sends into our lives to learn how to love as He does. Because if we can love those that are closest to us, then we truly, truly, truly encounter love. And I think we follow these 10 commandments that Jesus is teaching about in our gospel. Haven't we all at some point been frustrated with ourselves when we go to confession? Because we're going to confession to confess something that we did last time, and the time before that, and the time before that. And if we were gambling people, we would bet that we probably will confess it again. Frustrated with ourselves because we have every good intention to not do it again, but we do. I hope I'm not the only one in the church that has experienced that. Because that is what it means to be human. We have our weakness. We need our help from our Savior. That's what it means to have a Savior. We are what I like to call sinaholics. We're all stuck with sins. And just because my repeat sin may be different than yours, it's all a part of our life. It is a fact of life. And if we're honest with ourselves and with each other as a community, I think we can acknowledge that. I have a good friend who's working a 12-step program. He's a holic, one of them. And he says one of the keys to a 12-step program is recognizing that a relapse happens long before you ever use that substance or pick up that bad habit. It often begins with the fear, the anxiety, the loneliness, you name it, that triggers the craving. And so the key to recovery is to nip it right where it begins, to address the roots. The fear, the anxiety, and the loneliness, to prevent that craving from happening again. And so as sinaholics, I propose that we're all in that same boat. Preventing the sin that keeps reoccurring requires us to go a little deeper than just saying, I'm not going to do that again. And I think that's exactly what Jesus is getting at in our gospel tonight. He says, if you have anger with your brother, you've already committed murder in your heart. And we know that sometimes when murder does happen, it begins with anger much earlier. Jesus says if you're objectifying another person in your mind, you've already committed adultery in your heart. If you're already trying to manipulate with words or actions, you've already taken a false oath. It has to go much deeper than that. We have to go to the root of the sin. We have to go to the reason for the anger, the wound that caused that anger, and find healing. If we're struggling with the repeat sin of gossip, we have to go to the insecurity that leads us to gossip to begin with. If we're struggling with that sin of objectification, we have to go to the loneliness that leads to it. If we're lying and struggling with lying, we have to go to the fear and anxiety that leads us to try to persuade others of something other than the truth. And I think that's exactly what Jesus is saying when he says, to be my followers, your righteousness has to exceed that of the Pharisees and the scribes. The Pharisees and scribes were great people. They were the models of their day. They tried to follow the law every check mark of the way, check every box. They lived good lives, just like many model Catholics do today. The ones who go to Mass every day, pray the rosary, pray novenas, meet all the boxes. They were the models of the day, but yet they missed the presence of the Savior in their midst because they were missing the whole spirit of the law. They weren't murdering anybody, but they were harboring a lot of anger against people. Perhaps is one example. And so they too needed healing, and that's Jesus' point. And so where do you need to be healed of? Where is the root of your sin? And have you started to ask Christ to save you, to heal you? Or are you still just trying not to do it again? Lent is just a couple of weeks away. Now is really the time to start preparing for Lent. And Lent's also a time when we start to get outdoors and we start to garden and we start to see all kinds of plants come up. And anybody that gardens knows that you have to take care of weeds right away or they will take over. And anybody that has a really nice garden knows that you can't just pick the top of the weed. You got to go all the way down into the root. And so Lent could be a perfect opportunity for us, not just to say, I'm going to avoid gossiping for 6 weeks, but to say, I'm going to go deeper and find out and ask for healing about why I gossip, is one example. And so what are you going to give up for Lent this year? Now's really the time, with it only being a couple weeks away, to really think about it. Perhaps the Lord is asking you, take a little time to reflect on where that anger is, or that family relative or that coworker. Make some time, make a sacrifice to make some time to go and be reconciled. Perhaps there's anxiety. Finding some time to talk about it could be a wonderful Lenten sacrifice. Perhaps there's jealousy. Finding time to practice gratitude. Getting at the root of these sins so that none of us murder with our hearts. It's interesting that 3 of the commandments deal with our relationship with God. The other 7 deal with people. And so our Lenten sacrifice, our journey closer to Christ, will always lead us closer to people and will help us to be just a little more loving to those who are closer to us. Every time we receive the Eucharist and we say that beautiful, beautiful phrase, holy, 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 we believe that heaven and earth are connected, that our deceased relatives and all the saints who have gone before us are right with us, right in this beautiful space. We take a seat at the eternal banquet for a moment in time here on earth, and we're connected. They too lived with the challenges we did, and they've been purified of the roots of their sin. We too are called to take just a little step closer to that heavenly vision when we receive the Eucharist. And so where are you asking God to heal you as you receive him tonight, as he goes inside to the core of who you are? And how are you being invited to prepare, to give up whatever is needed this Lent, to invite the Savior in, not just to help you not sin anymore, but to heal you of the cause of that sin.